It's time for the Phoenix Suns to make a change. Let's talk about it on another edition of Southwest Bias.
Get that stuff out of here! It's Southwest Bias!
Of course, brought to you by our friends over at Branded Bills. Elevate your brand like I am right now with Branded Bills, the perfect headwear and apparel. Use code PHNX for 20% off your first order. I'm Erik. I'm rolling solo today. And of course, I'm talking about your Phoenix Suns because it is time for the Phoenix Suns to make a drastic change. Although I don't really know if it's that drastic after what you've seen over the last couple of games. But if I told you at the beginning of the season that in the middle of January, I'd be banging on this table telling you that Oso Ighodaro, the rookie, the second-round rookie for the Phoenix Suns, should be their starting center, I feel like we'd probably think that the season has gone off the rails. And it absolutely has gone off the rails. And I think before we dive into that part as to why Oso needs to start, I think we should dive into exactly why on the court Oso Ighodaro is the best fit for the Phoenix Suns right now. And I think you can look at somebody like Ryan Dunn and use that as an argument for pro Oso Ighodaro. We saw what infusing this youth, this energy, athleticism at a position that the Suns so desperately needed it into the starting lineup brought for your Devin Bookers and Kevin Durant's of the world, or even what it unlocks for Bradley Beal. When Beal and Dunn share the court together, or Tyus Jones, and how many deficiencies that covers up for the Suns, Oso is purely the most athletic center on this roster, and it's not even close. And we talk about the Suns making a trade. They would still need to do that. If they start Oso, they would still need to fix some other things internally about their process, whether it's their approach to shooting threes or not getting up as many attempts as they did the beginning of the season, whether it's the turnovers, which have continued to go down, especially since this new starting lineup has been put out there. There are other things besides Oso that this Suns team needs to clean up, but at the end of the day, his presence on the court unlocks, and it's so weird to say this, unlocks your big three or your big two in Kevin Durant and in Devin Booker, simply by having somebody in the dunker spot who, I don't know, can dunk. It seems like such an easy thing to say or such a simple fix, and maybe it to some people doesn't register as how much it would unlock. But in the same way that packaging Josh Okogie or Jusuf Nurkic and a couple picks or whatever it takes to get Nick Richards would help this team tremendously, merely putting Oso into the starting lineup also does that. Now, Oso does have his deficiencies, primarily on the rebounding edge, primarily just because of his size and his build, and that does put you at a little bit of a disadvantage with certain things if you do put him in the starting lineup, but it's not greater than the disadvantages that you'd be putting in your starting lineup when you've started Jusuf Nurkic for over half the season, or Mason Plumlee after you benched Jusuf Nurkic. And Nurkic now not with the team due to the flu, but was completely out of the rotation entirely. Mason Plumlee is not a starting level center. And to be frankly honest, Oso Ighodaro right now in his career is not a starting level center. So either way, you're starting somebody who's going to have clear deficiencies. With Mason, he doesn't look at the rim. He's not a great finisher. He's a good rebounder, decent passer. His IQ is kind of touch and go, right? Sometimes he's making incredible plays. Sometimes he's dribbling the ball up the court when he definitely shouldn't be, right? But he's a serviceable big, right? He can be maybe the third center in your center rotation. Oso realistically right now should probably be your second center in your center rotation. That's just not the situation that you're in with the Phoenix Suns. The situation you're in is you were multiple games under 500. You were hitting the panic button. You moved Bradley Beal, who's been a career starter, not just in the NBA, to the bench. You move Jusuf Nurkic, who's been the starting center for this team for a year and a half, to the bench. You started Mason Plumlee. That didn't work. And then in the second half against the Hornets, when Mark Williams was looking like prime Shaq in the first half, you start Oso Ighodaro for the second half. And Oso Ighodaro sparks that run at the end of the game that brought the Suns back into it, had them claw back, and eventually punch their way back to 500. Oso Ighodaro unlocked all of that for the Phoenix Suns. As a second-round undersized rookie, he did that. Why? What other tangible things from him can be so positive to the point where it's a no-brainer decision to me, to Espo, to Steven? I'm not going to speak for Gerald, but I do believe that Gerald is also leaning towards that as well. Why is it such a shoe-in decision to start Oso Ighodaro, an undersized second-round center who doesn't have touch? Oso can't shoot threes. Oso's post hook needs a lot of work. Why? Well, because of all the other incredible things that he brings to the court, starting off with his basketball IQ. Oso is already one of the smartest players on the Suns roster. He's already a player that you can look at and not worry about making a dumb decision with dumb turnovers. Now, sometimes Oso needs to be a little bit more aggressive and look for his shot around the rim and elevate and finish above the rim, and that will come with time. But as far as making these right, quick decision passes, whether it's kicking out to Devin Booker, handing it off to Devin Booker, finding KD, whether it's slipping a screen, whether it's not slipping a screen, whether it's on defense, making the right rotations, the hustle play, whether it's the quick hands to switch out on the perimeter and guard somebody like a Paul George or a LaMelo Ball or a Brandon Miller, right? And having the smarts to know what you need to do, but also the athletic ability to be able to pivot, to be able to move your feet, slide, shuffle, and everything in between. Oso possesses all of that in a way that no other center for the Phoenix Suns has. The ability to actually switch, the ability to actually rise up and meet somebody at the rim on both sides of the court is something that a team full of or not full of athleticism, but full of touch, full of skill, right? Like the identity of the Phoenix Suns is not rim running. It's not athleticism. It's not grit and grind, right? It's not we're just going to outpower you. Their identity, because your identity is built around your superstars, is offensive firepower, skill, touch, shooting, everything that comes with being a premier top-level bucket getter in this league. That's who the Phoenix Suns, at their peak, through their best players, should be. That's why looking at a player like, not even Oso Ighodaro, let's talk about Josh Okogie, right? Having somebody like Josh Okogie, we've seen how valuable he's been with his athleticism, with his heart, with his hustle, with his grit, right? With his nose to rebound on both ends, right? With his fearlessness to throw his body around, with his intangibles on defense and the smarts. Like, that's why a player like Josh Okogie fits in. It's why a player like Ryan Dunn is fitting in beautifully in the starting lineup. And it's why Oso Ighodaro should also beautifully be fitting in that starting lineup. Now, I don't think that moving Oso to your starting center just solves all your problems. It doesn't make you a contender. It doesn't shore up every bad thing that's going on with a team that should not be 500 right now. But it's an improvement. It's a step in the right direction. And that's what I've been saying. That's what I've been harping on over this past, 4 wins out of 5 games in a 3-game win streak, is this team was in such dire straits, such a dire position, multiple games under 500, highest payroll in the league, stars weren't getting along, the vibes were terrible. They've started making the right decisions in the improvements. It started with Mike Budenholzer putting Bradley Beal and Jusuf Nurkic on the bench. Then it made Jusuf Nurkic go out of the rotation. Now it's Oso Ighodaro starting the second half against the Hornets. And now the logical next step for Mike Budenholzer and company is to start Oso Ighodaro against the Atlanta Hawks, a team that he did pretty good against the last time that they played. Right? Yes, he's undersized, but he's smart enough, he's athletic enough that you need to put him in a position to learn on the fly. We're going to talk about learning, about him improving, and more of the reasons why Oso Ighodaro should be the starting center for your Phoenix Suns. Right after I remind everybody that, of course, this episode of Southwest Bias and all episodes of Southwest Bias is brought to you by our friends over at Branded Bills, and you can use code PHNX for 20% off your first order, 20% off the perfect headwear and apparel, whether it's snapbacks, truckers, fitted, beanies, or tees. Branded Bills has you covered with performance and style. These hats feel good. They look good. Of course, they have Suns hats. If you're at Footprint Center, boots on the ground, you can go check those out. I know Espo has one of those. I'm still waiting to get my hands on those. I have so many ASU hats as they are partnered with Arizona State University, your Big 12 champions. And of course, you can get custom headwear and apparel, as well as we have our own PHNX branded hats that you can get on our locker. The moral of the story is Branded Bills has you covered with headwear and apparel. They're a local company, and you can head to brandedbills.com. Use code PHNX for 20% off your first order. And if you're looking to sell your house right now. Write down this number, 480-776-5231. That is the number for the Carol Royce Real Estate Team. Family owned, locally operated through 3 generations in the Valley of the Sun. They have an unbeatable track record, having sold over 12,000 homes across the Valley. It's quite simple. Carol knows the Arizona real estate market, and choosing the right agent is a big decision, so make sure you make the guaranteed one. It's not just a, we'll do this and we can do. No, it's a guarantee, a written guarantee. Your home will be sold for 100% of the market value, or Carol will pay you the difference. If you're selling your home in 2025, the name to trust is Carol Royce, your home sold guaranteed realty. Have questions, call today or visit Carol online at carolroyceteam.com. That's carolroyceteam.com. Once again, I'm going to bring this argument back to why Ryan Dunn should continue to start, and that's why Oso should be starting. It is because in this situation, Ryan Dunn has continued to find himself grow, be a better basketball player because of the situations that the Suns have been putting him into, and he hasn't always succeeded, right? He hasn't always had great offensive games. He hasn't always been great at shooting, but the Suns have given him the room. They have allowed him the space to grow, to learn, to make mistakes, to get better. And that's exactly what Oso Ighodaro not just should get, but has earned for this team. You saw Kevin Durant talking post-game about how after the Grizzlies game, when Jaren Jackson Jr. torched the Suns, him and Oso had an aside, and Oso was mad. He was mad because he expects better of himself and because he wants better of himself, and that's what drives him. That is the type of energy, that is the type of mentality, it is the type of mindset that the Phoenix Suns so desperately need. They're craving like SpongeBob needed the water, man. They need it. They need the athleticism, check. They need the youth, check. They need the intelligence, check. They need the intangibles, the switchability on defense, check. They need the rim running, check. They also need the hope. Suns fans need hope. Look at where this season would be without Ryan Dunn and Oso Ighodaro. Think about where we would be if right now the center rotation we were talking about was Jusuf, Nurkic, and Mason Plumlee alone. Oso Ighodaro ignites hope for Phoenix Suns fans, ignites hope for their superstars, ignites hope for their coaching staff by simply the way that he plays, by the person that he is. That can make a massive difference on a team that has been losing on the margins, a team whose vibes have been in the gutter, a team whose athleticism, a team whose faith in itself had fallen so low that despite having the highest payroll, despite having Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, Royce O'Neal, Grayson Allen, Tyus Jones, Monte Morris, right? Despite having all of those players, they still found themselves multiple games under 500 in a spot where fans were apathetic, fans were done, fans were over it. And then you insert Ryan Dunn. You start bringing the fans back in. Now you reinsert Oso Ighodaro. You bring the joy. You bring the energy. And you bring the ability to get better. Oso Ighodaro right now in the middle of January will be worse than Oso Ighodaro in the middle of February, which will be worse than Oso Ighodaro in the middle of March and April, and then over the summer and then the start of next season. He's going to continue to get better because he has that drive. The drive that was shown after the Grizzlies game, the drive that was shown after being a second-round pick, the drive that's been shown after making mistakes and just trying to be better. And if he continues to improve, his baseline is so high. His chemistry with Devin Booker has already developed to the point where you saw multiple broken down plays, end of shot clock situations where Oso and Book ran an unspoken, unplanned two-man game where Oso made the right pass leading to a bucket. His 2 assists on the night against Charlotte. He's already there on the baseline. So what's going to happen if you give him more minutes? More times to make mistakes? Yes. More time to learn from those and to get better? Also yes. And that is the most important thing here. You need to start shifting your expectations. Sure, we need to be in win now mode, but we also need to be in win later mode. And Oso can help you in both ways. It's a 2-for-1, 2 birds with 1 stone. That's Oso Ighodaro. Let me know down in the comments below if you think Oso Ighodaro should be starting for the Phoenix Suns. Of course, make sure you hit this like button. Make sure you subscribe to PHNX Sports as well. The march to 40K continues. If you're new around here, PHNX Suns does pregame and postgame shows for every single Suns game this season. All 82 and Who knows if there's going to be play-in or playoffs, but we will be there too. For those of you listening on audio, whether in the Southwest Bias feed or on the Suns feed, we appreciate you. Make sure you rate us 5 stars, drop a review. Let us know what you like about Southwest Bias and about PHNX Suns. You can follow the show at PHNX_Suns. And of course, you can follow myself at ERIKRUBY. It's early in the week, so that you know what that means. We'll be back later for another edition of Southwest Bias.
Get that stuff out of here! It's Southwest Bias!